we are. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And everybody that's here, everybody that's online. And yeah, we've been out for a couple weeks. So thank you all for giving us...
A week with 2 weekends on each end.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it was, thank you all for letting us able to just to disappear for a little bit. It was very good. It's very refreshing.
We didn't have other agenda. Besides, we were in Houston. We got to see his mom and
My sister.
your sister
And my nephew briefly.
yeah, not really. And I'll say this, we need to, we've been praying for John's mom for healing and things, but the caregiver needs prayer. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, but it's hard on a caregiver.
It is.
And y'all know that Laura has her own challenges. And I think he was always in there with his mom, like he'd sit on her bed and do things like he did when he was a little boy and hold her hand. But I spent a lot of time with Laura, and, it's hard. Laura's, not only is she a caregiver, but because that's where she's living in the house right now and has been, she's lonely too. She may be listening. And so, it was needed. Me being there, both of us being there, and of course she wanted her brother there, but her brother didn't sit and talk with her and talk with her and talk with her. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, I had to do some work.
You were with your mama, and you did sit.
And I did some work, and
it's so cute when Pastor goes in there. First thing he does is hold his mama's hand.
that's what she wants.
Well, he said he did that when he was a boy too. So, yeah, and he'd go in there and be with his mama, and she loved it. So
Well, I understand her perspective being the caregiver because I've got that with my mom.
yeah, and Bonnie is still pretty much immobile. So, and she does have help Monday through Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday, she's on her own. So she has, if she's with, if she would need moved, Laura, she has to do it by herself, or maybe if Craig comes by.
My sister's a tough lady. Let me just tell you that, in spite of what has to deal with physically, because she'll
came from tough stock.
she'll get there and she'll help my mom get out of bed, help my mom get back into bed, and get her, her body moved and changed,
Even without use of hands, and
yeah, she's like, I'm amazed, really amazed.
She's a great lady. But as we pray for Bonnie, let's also pray, even if we don't remember her name's, just think Laura, so it's the, Laura, but just say John's sister, whatever it is, because she needs strength and she's dealing with health things as well. So, yeah. There you go. But it was good being able to be there, and then being able to, after a few days there, being able to get with just us. So, and we were blessed. Okay, I have to tell on our vacation, it has nothing to do with the Torah portion. I'm sort of a foodie. I like unique and different food because I like to learn, and then I like to try to cook it. And
I would have guessed that.
You never would have guessed that. Everybody, she's being facetious because, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, I have my normals, Italian and Mexican and things like that. But this time, y'all blessed us in ways where I had Moroccan food, Greek food, and it was accident. The Moroccan was an accident. There's this restaurant in Houston that's really close to his parents. Well, it seemingly was an accident. And it wasn't, but it seemingly was. Yes. But, so it's close, and they give a really good price for like a 3-course meal, and they have live piano, and it's just, and I get to dress up. That's one thing I love to do, is that I got to wear dresses, and I never get to do that, and dress up, and anyway, so I got to dress up, and on the menu, there's nothing clean. There was only one thing clean in each course, because they offer you several, like 3, and I said,
they like using pig and shellfish.
Well, nonetheless, the one thing, the chicken was a Moroccan something chicken. It was the best. It was so amazing.
Oh, we had leftovers, and my mom
loved it. Well, they give like a good sized portion. Well, I only want half of that, And so I said, look, let's get this to Bonnie because Bonnie can eat it. Laura couldn't eat anything like that right now because she just had surgery in her mouth.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
And so she was drinking, pretty much drinking her food almost, something very liquidy. But nonetheless, it was like that. And then when we were in Fredericksburg, we were talking to this lady. She said, you need to just try this, this Mama's Cooking kind of restaurant. And it was the best chicken fried steak I'd ever had. So, in other words, and a lot of it was just inexpensive, and that was good too. And so I had a food adventure, and I loved it. Having different kinds of food that I never had.
And you never know because you go to a different restaurant, you're like, well, what's it going to be like, and you check the reviews and you do all that. But y'all blessed us with some, leading us to the right one. So I think that whole trip, our food was good for
Oh my goodness! Oh, and then
every single
the
meal.
very last meal that we had, I was like, oh, this is our last night. We got to head back to reality. And they had lamb. The place we went had lamb. So I had lamb. And
It was delicious.
so now I have lamb shanks that I boiled off the bone for Passover. So that's good. So anyway, that had nothing to do with Torah portion. Just telling you a little bit about a wonderful time we had. So, and again, I have to praise John that he chose to only work in those wee hours. I would have a whole day with him every day. And it made a difference for you too, I think. Yes.
And the Father blessed me with being able to wake up. Because I don't get up at 4 o'clock.
But you're still getting up at 4.
My body just doesn't do it, and he helped me with a shift and a change to be able to get up, even sometimes before my alarm. So.
And he's still doing it because he's now, y'all be happy about this, Pastor John is actually going to the gym to get healthy.
I did 5 days in a row this week.
Because he got up at 4. That something started.
Yeah, I told her, I said, I'm not getting up at 2:30 to leave.
So are you going to go with me? He says, no, you do your own thing, your own way, your own routine.
I said,
I'm not going
I'm
with
good
you.
at 4. Don't ask me to do anything else, anything earlier. So, yeah.
So that's a praise, y'all. That was sort of a transformation for you that started on our break.
Yeah, it was good. And online, Eddie and Tammy made it home, so praise y'all for that. They had quite a journey and delay to get them.
An adventure.
Boy.
Yeah, an adventure. Yeah, and Terry had an adventure while we were gone. Apparently, had to go visit another type of residence for a couple days.
Yes.
So I'm glad that you're out of there.
Oh, me too.
And I want to give an update. We've been having Sukkot meetings all week long, and it's exciting. I will tell you this, for the very first time, I'm going to be Sukkoting in a trailer. They're providing a trailer for me. And we are doing 2 nights of worship, Thursday and Saturday. And I found out that I am speaking only once. I think it's on Thursday at 10:30, but it's still speaking. And then we've had meetings about the youth, so I'm trying to get all that together. And supplies they gave me, I asked for $200 budget. I asked for $200 for supplies this week. Now I'm assuming the way it sounds that I buy the supplies and they reimburse me is the way it sounds, but that makes sense. But I didn't know if I'd have any. I was going to bring all our youth supplies, which is, I've got quite a few, but anyway, that's been good. And then I have something else. Did you take care of that yesterday, Joy?
I called them late yesterday. I think they were already gone. I left a message. So I'll call again Monday morning, I guess.
They'll close office. You got to call
I
early.
had to work yesterday.
Yeah,
morning.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
have a chance to call, but I called him. I did call. I left a message.
Can I say anything?
Sure.
Well, it looks like Monty has a dance leader for Sukkot named Joy.
Joy Freeman. Hallelujah.
You're going?
I think so.
If you're going, you're going.
Well,
You have somebody to hang out with.
I would love everybody to go. We are still over at our regular area over whatever that is. And
Area A, I think is what you put in the
but
text.
I think it's going to be pretty exciting. All that there's there, from what I heard, is there's just 300, so it's a lot smaller, and that's okay. I mean, let's been looking at our Sukkot, okay? So, but
We have a good Sukkot.
we have a great
our
Sukkot.
fries.
That's right, and well, I love it because people from all over the nation still have attended. So, but nonetheless, if you guys want to join us, please do, and remember to ask to be with John and Sandy Craig in area
A.
A.
And just know, he's been saying that they're about to be closing it up, so if you're gonna go, you need to get it done pretty quick.
Really?
I'm not gonna have the money too, I can't have time off. I've already found that out. So
Oh, you can't have the time off? See, that was a God thing too, because so many people, Jack couldn't get off because of their new computer thing. So honestly, when Irma and Joy gave me the advice that I needed to do what was best for Life of Worship, it was really the right thing for this year, because so many people wouldn't have even been able to come if it was here. So you guys, you too, thank you for giving me that wise advice.
See, I've got that 4-day weekend that's right in the middle of it that I would have been able to attend. But I can't go all the way to Oklahoma and back, not with my car.
Well, if there's any way, y'all can always make a way. He's a miracle worker. I think we'll have a testimony in that soon, how he
still
works
is.
it out. I said he is.
Yeah.
And he can still make a way if you want to go. He can do it. I know he can. So, right now from Life of Worship, we do have Jonathan and his family and Joy. And I was always assuming if Joy went, Jackie was going. And then
Well,
Linda.
just because y'all are off doing stuff all the time, so I was just needed somebody to hang with.
Linda's
so-
going.
Linda, yeah, she is.
And who
Yes,
knows?
I could hang with Linda too. I thought about that. Mine's gonna be, but I'll figure it out.
Linda's grinning on the screen.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
her beautiful face.
Hey,
Is
Linda.
she with Luann?
Yeah, Luann, they're both together.
You two
Luann,
are visiting. See, that was one thing I was going to ask, if we could get Luann to go. Let me see what her face.
Oh, she can't go.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Not yet. Someday. She'll make it.
Yes, that's right. And anyway, so there's another story. Get ready. Let Sukkot's on its way, and be praying, because one more time, I want to give the right messages at the right time, with the right worship, with the right whatever is supposed to be for the people. So, and they asked me for a title for my message, and I'm like,
They asked you for a title for a message?
yeah.
See, they know.
I didn't
never
even
mind.
know whether I was
I'll
going to
be-
go once or twice. I have no title for you yet. So anyway. All right. Well, I guess we should get into the tour portion now that I wasted 30 minutes or some of our time, 20 minutes of our time. So I apologize, but I hadn't connected with you guys in a few weeks, and I wanted to talk for a moment. So anyway, Pastor John, why don't you talk for a
I
minute?
love them. Okay, I do.
I think we need to just go ahead and jump in.
Prayer?
Yeah, we're going to pray, jump into the Torah portion, and go from there. Father, we just honor you today. We just thank you for the blessing of the Shabbat, and that, Father, that it is a day that you've made, and you created it for us to rest and to be with you and come together with you at an appointed time. And that, Father, that it's a time to commune with you. It's a time for you to just renew us and to refresh us, so that on the 8th day, then we can arise again and go forth and to be a blessing for your kingdom. So, Father, put into us today those things that we need to hear, those things we need to know, those things that restore, renew, refresh, and edify us in every single way. Father, you're so good and you're so kind, and let your loving kindness and mercy just be poured out today as we gather in the services, and that, Father, that whatever need is necessary and needful, that, Father, that you would just pour out such great mercy, so your
Yes.
people are strengthened in mind, spirit, and body, in the name of Yeshua.
And
Amen.
Father, thank you for getting Tammy and Eddie home safe.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for Terry's car
Yes.
or vehicle.
Oh.
So.
it's out front.
Ooh.
All right. So, with that being said, our tour portion is is Deuteronomy 21:10 through
25:19.
25:19. Now, I'm not going to have us start with chapter 21 today because I'm not focusing there. So I think that we are going to
Be right back.
chapter 24. And we may go backwards, but I have a lot I want to say in chapters 24 and 25. So I want to make sure that we get all of that in. Let me see. Where's my first thing?
24 was where she's going to start.
And 24. I've
I've
got
been
it.
very busy this week. You have no idea. Okay.
Okay, so if somebody would read chapter 24, that would be amazing. It would be very helpful. And be ready, Linda and Luann, because I'm going to have you guys read too.
Okay. We'll
All
be
right.
ready.
Okay.
I'll read.
Okay.
I gotta get my glasses on.
Suppose a man marries a woman and consummates that marriage, but later finds her displeasing because he has found her offensive in some respect. He writes her a divorce document, gives it to her, and sends her away from his house. She leaves his house and goes and becomes another man's wife. But the second husband dislikes her and writes her a gift, gives it to her, and sends her away from his house. Or the second husband who she married dies. In such a case, her first husband who sent her away may not take her again as his wife because she is now defiled. It would be detestable to Yehovah, and you are not to bring about sin in the land Yehovah your Elohim is giving you as your inheritance. If a man has recently married his wife, he is not to be subject to military service. He is to be free of external obligations and left at home for 1 year to make his new wife happy. No one may take a mill or even an upper millstone as collateral for a loan, because that would be taking as collateral the debtor's very means of sustenance. If a man kidnaps any of his brothers, fellow members of the community of Israel, and makes him his slave or sells him, the kidnapper must die. In this way you will put an end to such wickedness among you. When there is an outbreak of Zerarot, be careful to observe and do just what the Kohanim, who are the Leviim, teach you. Take care to do as I ordered them. Remember what Yehovah your Elohim did to Miriam on the road after you left Egypt. When you make any kind of loan to your neighbor, and you are not to enter his house to take his collateral, you must stand outside, and the borrower will bring the collateral outside to you. If he is poor, you are not to go to bed with what he gave as collateral in your possession. Rather, you must restore the pledged item at sunset. Then he will go to sleep wearing his garment and bless you. This will be an upright deed of yours before Yehovah your Elohim. You are not to exploit a hired worker who is poor and needy, whether one of your brothers or a foreigner living in your land is in your town. You are to pay him his wages the day he earns them before sunset, for he is poor and looks forward to being paid. Otherwise he will cry out against you to Yehovah, and it will be your sin. Fathers are not to be executed for the children, nor children to be executed for the fathers. Every person will be executed for his own sin. You are not to deprive a foreigner or orphan of the justice which is due, and you are not to take a widow's clothing as collateral for a loan. Rather, remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and Yehovah your Elohim redeemed you from there. That is why I'm ordering you to do this. When harvesting the grain in your field, if you forgot a sheaf of grain there, you are not to go back and get it. It will remain there for the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow, so that Yehovah your Elohim will bless you in all the work you do. When you beat your olive trees, you are not to go back over the branches again. The olives that are left will be for the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow. When you gather the grapes from your vineyard, you are not to return to pick grapes a second time. What is left will be for the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. That is why I'm ordering you to do this.
All right. Okay, I need to see Linda and Luann because I want to know if one of you will read chapter 25. Because we are going to do Torah portion really weird. I'm going backwards because the very last subject I know is going to be very consuming. So I'm going to save that for the very last thing. So would one of you guys read chapter 25?
If people have a dispute, seek its resolution in court. and the judges render a decision in favor of the righteous one and condemning the wicked one. Then if the wicked one deserves to be flogged, the judge is to have him lie down and be flogged in his presence. The number of strokes is to be proportionate to his offense, but the maximum number is 40. He is not to exceed this. If he goes over this limit and beats him more than this, your brother will be humiliated before your eyes. You are not to muzzle an ox when it's treading out the grain. If a brother lives together and one of them dies childless, his widow is not to marry someone unrelated to him. Her husband's brother is to go to her and perform the duty of a brother-in-law by marrying her. The first child she bears will succeed to the name of his dead brother, so that his name will not be eliminated from Israel. If the man does not wish to marry his brother's widow, then his brother's widow is to go up to the gate to the leaders and say, my brother-in-law refuses to raise up for his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother for me. The leaders of his town are to summon him and speak to him. If on appearing before them he continues to say, I do not want to marry her, then his brother's widow is to approach him in the presence of the leaders, pull his sandal off his foot, spit in his face, and say, this is what is done to the man who refuses to build up his brother's family. From that time on, his family is to be known in Israel as the family of the man who had his sandal pulled off. If men are fighting with each other and the wife of one comes up to help her husband get away from the man attacking him by grabbing the attacker's private parts with her hand, you are to cut off her hand and show no pity.
It was a little different back then.
You are not to have in your pack 2 sets of weights, one heavy, the other light. You are not to have in your house 2 sets of measures, one big and one small. You are to have a correct and fair weight, and you are to have a correct and fair measure, so that you will prolong your days in the land of Adonai your God is giving you. For all who do such things, all who deal dishonestly, are detestable to Adonai your God. Remember what Amalek did to you on the road as you were coming out of Egypt, how he met you by the road, attacked those in the rear, those who were exhausted and straggling behind when you were tired and weary. He did not fear God. Therefore, when Adonai your God has given you rest from all your surrounding enemies in the land of Adonai your God is giving you as your inheritance to possess, you are to blot out all memory of Amalek under heaven. Don't forget.
All right, perfect. Well, guess where we're starting? We're starting with verses 17 through 19. And I wanted to, have you guys ever wondered why Amalek is the one that we blot out? Why Amalek is it for it? What Amalek has done is something that makes him detestable forever, basically, and not Egypt and not many of the other enemies. Have you guys ever wondered that? I have. You know, because here's this law, and it appears, remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt. And you think, well, why is it that we remember what they've done, we don't forget, and when the Yah gives us rest from all our enemies around us in the land he's given us to possess, you shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. You think about that it doesn't say Egypt, even though Egypt enslaved them. It doesn't say these other people, even though they've done things, tried to pronounce curses, do all sorts of things. It doesn't say that. So the Israelites had 2 enemies when Moshe was around. Who were they?
Amalek was one.
What was the other one?
Moab. Or Canaan.
The Edomites?
Egypt.
Egypt, okay.
When we're looking specifically, I mean, we do know there were some other issues, but specifically, those were the big ones that Israel was dealing with at the time. And so, what did the Egyptians do? They enslaved a whole people. But we don't see that kind of language. And then, what did they? They also turned around and they forced this labor colony. They oppressed them. They beat them. Did other things. And Pharaoh commanded them even to drown their male children. And still, we don't blot them out. I've always thought that was peculiar. And I've been like, well, why? You know, why, y'all? Why is it like that? Now, Deuteronomy 23:8 says, do not despise an Egyptian because you were once strangers in the land. So we're not even to despise
Because
them.
they showed them a kindness originally.
Well, that's true. That's very true. There was a kindness originally. But here we have this idea that we don't despise them. So what did the Amalekites do? They didn't seem to do a whole bunch by comparison, destroy the baby boys. Well, the Amalekites came up behind them and killed the stragglers, those that were weak, and they attacked them. And yes, Joy.
Well, so this whole Torah portion is about that. You don't abuse the weak. And so that's what Amalek did. He took advantage of the weak. So maybe that's fine. I don't
Well,
know.
and also, they don't want the warfare. If you've got a grievance against somebody and you're gonna kill everybody, that starts warfare too.
But you're right. This whole Torah portion is about oppressing the weak.
Yes.
And we've really got to watch ourselves to make sure we don't do that, because the Amalekites didn't even, when they attacked, Israel put them off, successfully. Yet Moses commands, don't forget, blot out the name. And so for all generations. So what's the difference? Now, the Avot 5:19 says this, and I don't have notes for you guys. I'm so sorry. I just didn't have time.
Where are you at?
She said she didn't have notes.
No, but what verse
I'm
did you
reading.
say?
I'm reading. I am reading not out of Torah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So hold on. I just lost my place. It says, whenever love depends on a cause and the cause passes away, then the love passes away too. But if love does not depend on a cause, then the love will never pass away. What is the example of love which depends upon a cause? That of Ammon for Tamar. And what is an example of love which does not depend on a cause? Think of David and Jonathan. So what it's basically saying, there's conditional love and unconditional love. By the same token, maybe there's conditional hate and unconditional hate. Maybe the boundaries are going to appear somewhat the same. So the easiest way to figure that out is let's look at conditional love and unconditional love. Because Ammon, you guys remember who Ammon was? Ammon was the half-sister of Tamar, David's children. Okay, and what did he want? He wanted her. He wanted his sister. He lusted after her, but she's forbidden. That's his sister, his half-sister. Mm-hmm. And what did he do once he had his way for her? Well, let's look at 2 Samuel 13:15 and find out. We'll have somebody read that.
2 Samuel what?
13:15. Because, he's lusting after her. He wants this, he loved this, whatever you want to call it. It's really lust, but, nonetheless, there's this, I've got to have you, and do you imagine there was sweet talking and things in
13,
between?
15, I think.
Probably.
Yes.
I thought that was just Bathsheba.
No, there's a whole bunch of stuff that with David and his kids, his children. So,
But then he was filled with utter revulsion for her. His hatred of her was even greater than the love he had for her before.
okay, so guess what? He finally takes her.
Yep.
Now he doesn't want her anymore.
He got repercussions.
This sounds actually very much like can be a scenario that as today, especially when, and I'm going to focus on women too, because I hear more stories about that. If you missionary date, or if you think you've got this, you want this guy and you can change, you're never going to change that person.
No.
They're the best you're ever going to see them before you get married. Once you get married, it's not the same.
It's all downhill.
It's all downhill from there. Anyway, but here we have this idea. It says he loved her, so it didn't say that he liked her or he just lusted after her. The words that are used is that loved, but once he had her, he didn't love her anymore.
I would say it's more
So-
like lust in that case.
That was forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
It was forbidden fruit, but what he wanted was conditional. His quote unquote love for her had a condition, and once that condition was met, once his lust was fulfilled, there was no place.
Mhm.
Have you ever been around people that love you, but when they say they love you, but when times get tough or things aren't perfect or you make a mistake, they walk away from you?
Isn't that called high school?
I think it's called
I
life.
think it's called life.
Because I think it happens still today. I know stories
Oh, yeah,
of
it
people
does.
that are all our age and throughout generations that they proclaim their love and their faithfulness and how much they'll never leave or all of this, and they
Until they
walk
get it.
away when conditions aren't exactly like they want.
Or they get bored or whatever the
But
thing is.
that's conditional love.
Mhm.
Is that really even love then? Or is it just words and a feeling and an emotion? I don't know. Y'all jump in here, because I meant this for us to discuss. I wasn't meaning for me to do all the talking. But that
I've been
condition,
doing some jumping.
you have been. But that conditional idea that I'll be there for you always as long as you meet what I need, as long as you fulfill
Yeah,
me in what I need in my life or want or desire. It's messed up. But then you look at David and you look at David and Jonathan, and you don't see that. They loved each other through thick and thin. They loved each other even unto death. And no, it's not like what some try to say.
I was gonna say, that's what they say, right?
That and that's so messed up. It's just not.
But there is
Have you guys ever loved a sister, a girl's a sister, or guys, a brother, that you love them so much that you would lay down your life for them? And it has nothing to do with a sexual connotation. It's because you love them. I hate it that.
Yeah.
And there is a special kind of love between two men or two women that is, it's a bond. It's a bond with your sex. It doesn't mean you want to, years
Right.
ago, nobody thought about two women walking around holding hands. Okay, it wasn't a thing back then. early 1900s. They were just friends. They had occupied things they did together. They talked a lot. Blah 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 blah. So what they brought into our world today makes us.
Well, and you see two women now sitting down for a meal, or two men,
What
and
do
you
you
think,
always, what do you think?
Right.
and we shouldn't even think that way.
But we do. I mean, it's true sometimes.
I can usually
Or
pick
what?
And
them out.
that's why they send them through a basic training program, is to make them learn to work as a team. Because when you work as a team, you do gain a love for each other. And you will protect that other person.
Yeah, if you die for them. That's what our military men do, and women.
Okay, so let's take those ideas. Now let's apply it to hate. And because if hate is rational,
which
or if
is
it's based on fear or disapproval, or it's justified or not, if there's some sort of logic to a reason you dislike something or someone, then eventually it can be reasoned with, or if that condition goes away, you might not hate them or dislike them to that extent anymore, or something like that. In other words, conditional hate could be temporary. Conditional dislike could be temporary because circumstances, situations, people change, etc., etc. You change, I change. I think a lot of that boils down to what's inside me. My heart needs to change. But if you just hate or dislike somebody and there's no reason really there, it's just, then it can't be reasoned with no matter what you try to do. You can't cause logic to come in the picture, explanation, anything else. They're going to hate or they're going to dislike no matter what.
Yeah.
And so you can't address it, you can't do anything about it. And I think that's the difference in part with the Amalekites and the Egyptians. Because think about that. Why did Egypt dislike? Why did they grow to dislike the Hebrew people.
Fear, it was fear, wasn't it?
It was
Yeah.
fear.
Because there were so many of
They
them.
were afraid they were gonna take over.
Yes.
In fact,
Mm-hmm.
let's look at Exodus 19:10. No, not 19:10. That's later. Let's look at Exodus 1:9 through 10.
So, while everybody's looking that up, why is it that the world hates believers so much? Going off of your last premise.
It can't be reasoned with. Well, I believe it's spiritual.
Because, well,
It's not logical.
It's-
What we think is not logical.
And they're blinded too,
They
some of
can't
them.
take it.
Yeah.
they can't. Yeah, and could it be fear-based?
It is, because if we are correct, then they're living wrong, and they will be judged accordingly, and they want to be able to be free to live as they wish.
Yes.
But see, I don't believe it's just that.
No,
Because
but
I think
that
it
is
can
part
be
of it.
unconditional too, where it's a spiritual thing, where they've given themselves over to the enemy. And so when you get near, there's just this
So
feeling
does-
and this idea of hatred. I'm going to give an example. I go to the gym every Monday through Friday, early in the morning. I try to get up, be there around 3:15 sometimes. But there is a couple people in there, and I'm not saying hate, but I don't want to be near them, and I've never spoken to them. There's something that and I know it's a spiritual thing, and I'm like, oh, they're here,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, they're on that equipment. I don't want to be anywhere near them, and I know it's not rational. I know it, that part. And I'm not saying I hate them
Actually,
because
yes,
I
it is,
don't.
because it's a spiritual thing.
Well, you're discerning that spirit.
Right.
Yes. And
But-
also they can fear because what you don't know, if you've been in the world your whole life and you come out and you don't know him, sometimes you fear the unknown. That's another reason.
Well, and I
So
don't know that.
My question is hatred fear-based?
Sometimes.
What?
Yes.
Is hatred
A lot of
fear-based? Because one has
Jealousy
fear.
based.
Someone has fear, so therefore, hatred attaches itself to that
Yes.
fear.
Yes.
I mean,
They
think
go
about
hand in hand.
think about how you could probably say, in one sense, racism, for example.
No, let's not say that yet. Please.
No,
Please let's not say that yet.
are you going there later?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll pick it up on a little bit down the road. Just a little teaser there for you.
Yeah, let's not go there yet. But hold that thought. Hold it for. Go ahead, Linda.
I was going to say, I think it's also power-based sometimes.
Yeah.
People that they hate, like Stalin, the Stalins, the Hitlers, when we think of them, or at least I don't think of anything fear-based for their hatred. I think of power. They're power hungry. They want to lord over and rule over and oppress and kill.
And see, I think there's something to that. I wish I read something on Hitler and a lot of those leaders that have been very bad about the origins. That I'm not going to say anything right now, but I'm tickling your ears because I need to do some study and find out some more information about it. But I do think that people like Hitler have completely given themselves over.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've
there's
sold
a lot of people
themselves.
that have.
There's a lot of people that have literally sold themselves
That have done that.
and for power, for money, and because of that, there's a kingdom against kingdom thing that happens when somebody that loves Yeshua or even Jesus walks into the room or is near or their agenda, because there's one kingdom threaten the other. My brother sent me a video, or not sent me, he called me on the phone and he wanted me to watch this video. I'll have you guys watch it, or maybe John can cue it up for you. Anyway, so you guys can watch. It's like 5 seconds, so it's not a huge video. But the lightning is forming. He says, I think it's God in the clouds. And when you see it, you see this massive figure. It doesn't even look like it's just some sort of trying to push the clouds to look like it. No, it looks like it looks like a person-ish I say personage because it was so massive. It wouldn't be like you or me. But in their hand, to me, it looked like scales. And John verified the same thing. I showed it to him last night. He said, that looks like scales. And
Well, I think the veil is thin. That's all I'm going to say.
it is, but what it reminded me of, because we talk about we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principles, principalities, rulers in high places. And what I thought of immediately when he showed it to me was angelic hosts, more like.
Yeah.
And then with the idea of it being a scale, I said, Michael, it reminds me more, it might be like Michael, in that figure, or something like that. But what I'm saying is there's forces out there that move a nation, a people, a leader, a regular, whomever, whether small or big, because they're all different levels of forces that can move hatred, that because they're guarding their own kingdom. And our eyes cannot see what's actually happening out there. If we could see what was happening before us, it would probably completely freak us out. But it is such a battle, and hate is, and the other side, we're not supposed to respond that way, though we're supposed to hate what Yah hates and love what he loves.
That's right.
But we need to make sure that we are not moved by our feelings, but by his word. And that's hard. It's easier said than done, because we've always got to have an examination. But I think here we have this idea of this hatred of Amalek. Is it logical? No. Let's go ahead and read that verse in Exodus, if somebody has that. Exodus 1, 9 through 10.
But he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let's deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
So we have this fear-based, which we've already spoken of, this fear-based hatred, dislike, whatever you want to call it, because they were a threat. And was it a groundless threat? Absolutely not. In fact, if you guys remember, we've talked about it before, but the Hyksos, anybody remember who they were? There are people who basically, an Asiatic people who basically took over Egypt for a while. They were of Canaanite origin, and with Canaanite names and beliefs, and they took over the Nile Delta region during the second intermediate period of Egypt, of the pharaohs. And so there was a people that moved in and moved them out. Mm-hmm. So they are actually fearing based on their past experience even. So it wasn't irrational for them to fear. Was it logical in that, was that Israel's goal? Was that the Hebrew people's goal? No. So just because there's a difference between rational and justified, because the Egyptians' fear was unjustified, but because the Israelites wanted to leave. Let's be real honest, they wanted to leave. Now, do we know there's more to the story? They wanted the labor, they wanted that. Yes, there is, but we're really dealing with that foundational motivation of having that hatred for a people. And so that's what I want us to look at, because not every rational emotion is justified. There's some event happening and we may have worry or fear, but is that a justified behavior? No, because the word says that he's going to take care of us. But does that mean we don't feel it?
No.
Try not to.
We're going to have to battle. It's a battle.
Yeah, exactly.
To not walk in that. So the fact that it's more dangerous to drive a car than fly a plane, does that matter to some people? No.
Not to me.
But in other words, our emotions can get the best of us. But here we have this opposite idea of the Amalekites, because they attacked the Israelites because, as Joy had mentioned, they were weak and weary, tired, and had a long journey. And they focused their assault on those that were lagging behind. They focused their assault on those who were weak. Were those people any threat or danger to Amalek at all?
No.
None. So this was irrational, groundless hatred for a people. With rational hate, you cannot reason with it, just like we talked about before. There was no reason for the Egyptians to fear the Israelites anymore. They left. So they're not a threat. They're no longer a threat. Of course, Egypt is decimated, but nonetheless. But with irrational hate, there's no logic and there's no cause. And so it may never ever go away, no matter what the circumstance. Because
To say something.
Sure.
I was thinking, why they attack the weak and the weary, because they themselves are cowards. And maybe, like in Revelation, when God says the first people who won't get into heaven are the cowards. So maybe that's part of why he looks at Amalek as being so bad, because he looks at them as being cowards.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go for the weak and the weary instead of going for the strong ones. So that in turn makes them fearful and cowarding, and they can only get to the weak and the weary. They can feel that they can only take them out because they don't want to deal with the mightier, stronger people because they were afraid. Just a thought.
It's a good thought. It's a good thought for us to contemplate. Bottom line is that the hatred symbolized by Amalek, how long does it last? It just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going. Now, xenophobia, fear and hatred of the foreigner, the stranger, somebody that isn't like us. I hope nobody's like me, because I want to be different than everybody else, but you know what I mean. So there are times in our society where you may have needed to fear somebody coming in. Limited food, limited resources, warring tribes coming together, and so is that necessarily irrational? No, it's not. But when somebody that's new comes in, what is our initial reaction?
Stranger danger.
Stranger danger. We teach our children that and we need to, because it's
I
out there.
say that because when you you move into a small town, and it's like the whole town has that attitude towards you.
That's a good example. I remember when we moved from Amarillo to Dimmitt, Texas. It's a small town, and I was in 3rd grade, and I remember nobody wanted to be my friend. And I remember my mom told me, she said, well, just wait. And so I would go on the playground, and I said, I don't want to hang around I remember me, I've always been weird. I want to hang around good girls, not bad girls. Because there were some girls that went, and I was like, no, I didn't say that. In my little, how old are you? 8-year-old mind, I thought, I don't think you're the kind of girl I'm supposed to be with. But nonetheless, so I remember sitting on the playground by myself. It seemed like for weeks, long, I'm sure it wasn't, because I was 8. But eventually, I like this, I'm not a threat. I'm just a regular person. And eventually I became friends with some of the people and had those relationships till we graduated, and et cetera, et cetera. But you're absolutely right. In Dimmitt, Texas, at least, when you were new going in, you were nothing.
Now, I was 5 when we moved there, so when we
You were at the
started
beginning.
school, we started at the beginning together.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I was any more accepted, because they didn't go according to how long you were there. They went according to your last name. If your last name had been there for a long time, then you were accepted. Yeah, it was generations. They didn't want just first generation there. They wanted generations.
Well, isn't it weird that we as people are like that? But we're not. You and I are not supposed to be like that.
Well, sometimes I'm leery. You've got to put your antennas up there. Okay, we're supposed to set ourselves apart. But I'm pretty good at picking up on people's personalities, and if I detect something, I will not be nice to you, not try to get you know you something, but I will put my arm up till I know you, because there are too many Well, too many psychos out there today. You can't be stupid.
Okay, well let's think about this. Let's think about as people groups started coming into this nation. At one point, who were some of the most hated? At one point, it was
Irish.
the Irish
Uh-huh.
were very hated as they came into this country.
Italians, Irish.
Anybody different, let's be
Yes.
real. But after 2 or 3 generations, what happens? That sort of disappears because you integrate and you become part of the society. Or at least it used to be. Now you come in and you try to change the society to be like the society you just left.
Yeah.
Even though you left because it was oppressive.
Yeah, like,
That doesn't make sense. And
like
we're not
those
going that
Californians
direction.
coming to Texas.
Don't
Yeah.
California is our state.
Go back where you came, we're not living.
Just don't bring your stuff.
But what
But if you're
happened?
trying to
Go
escape
right
to come
on
to,
through to Colorado, please.
yeah, go,
In other words, the conditions, in other words, change.
unless you're trying to escape California, then you're welcome.
But anti-Semitism is different because people, it's not rational dislike, it's irrational. People hate a group of people. And we don't have to stick there. I don't want to get in, I know he was going to bring in race, but let's apply it to whatever. To me, it's just, where people are people. Now, do you love Yeshua or not?
Yes.
I probably will be different towards somebody on those categories.
Well, there's stuff rubs
But-
off on you. You know, if you get around people that aren't in Christ, I mean, there's going to be sometimes if they're really, really, really worldly, you know, you don't want that rubbing off on you.
When
The
I'm
Bible talks about setting yourself apart. Many
Yeah,
times.
we are supposed to set ourselves apart. So let's think about anti-Semitism through the generations, though. Because in the Middle Ages,
Well, yeah,
the
that.
Jewish people were actually accused of poisoning the wells, spreading plague back then. And then one of the most weird claims, ridiculous claims ever, was the blood libel. They were suspected of killing Christian children and using the Christian children as the blood to make the matzah for Pesach. Really? Does that really make sense, people?
No.
Anyway, even in Enlightenment, there was racial anti-Semitism. And in the 19th century, here were the problems. The Jewish people were hated because they were rich. They were hated because they were poor. They were hated because they were capitalists. They were hated because they were communists. They were hated because they kept to themselves. They were hated because they infiltrated everywhere. They were hated because of their superstitions, their faith, or because they didn't have faith. So it's not reason. There's no reason to it. And now we're seeing that rise up again, and not specifically towards the Jewish people, but you see racism rising up because the powers that be want it to rise up because they want to create divides. And like I said, I don't want to end up there, so we don't have time for that. But when you're thinking about hatred, there's this irrational and this rational. And I think that let's just see. Theodore Herzl in 1897 said this: "We have sincerely tried everywhere to merge with the national communities in which we live, seeking only to preserve faith of our fathers. It's not permitted us. In vain we are loyal patriots, sometimes super loyal. In vain do we make the same sacrifices of life and property and fellow citizens. In vain do we strive to enhance the fame of our native lands in the arts and sciences, or her wealth by trade and commerce. In our native lands where we have lived for centuries, we are still decried as aliens, often by men whose ancestors had not yet even come at the time when the Jewish sighs had long been heard in the country. If we were left in peace, but I think that we shall never be left in peace." That's pretty powerful, but it's 100% true. Theodore Herzl, 1897. It's part of our world, and irrational hate doesn't die. We know it's got a spiritual basis as well. Amalek doesn't die. But guess what? Neither does Yah's people. And so we've got to remember the irrational hate. Even though we're attacked, well, we have a defender. And I really wanted us to hit that today and just talk about maybe part of the problem is rational hate and irrational hate, just like we have rational love and irrational love. I thought that, and then also examine our life. Is there any area of our life where we have something rational or irrational that maybe we need to reconsider how we look at something or someone, or hopefully not a people, hopefully nobody that I know is like that to people. And I'm going to say this, and I know if you go over to Israel, there's a difference between the Arab people and the, what would you say, those that have the radical people.
Muslims.
No.
Yeah, when
Arabs,
specifically
not
Muslims,
necessarily,
because when you
Arabs,
go over
different
to
sects.
when you go over to Israel and you run across some of the Muslim people, they will invite you into their home. They're very full of hospitality and things like that. But then you have those of radicalized faith, which are large in number. That's a large number. But because ones like that, should we wipe out everybody like
No.
that? And that's something I've always got to examine, because I will find myself, even if I see someone or something that I know is a Muslim faith, or I assume they are because they're Arab, is that the right thing for me to do? I don't know.
You
It's
also
something
have to remember, though, if we get in a war in this country with them, those friendly Muslims, those people die for their faith, okay? I mean, that's what we need in Christianity more. But they are going to join up with them, trust me.
Well, like I said, I don't want it to be a discussion on.
And there's a few,
Islam.
I'm sure, that are okay, but,
Okay, now I want us to
And
turn.
you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
that's why I said there's a few of them. But, I mean...
Well,
they're big
by the
started-
same token, I remember when Carlos, the first couple that was at Life of Worship, meeting here in this home, he's Hispanic and just a wonderful, wonderful couple. Wonderful. I love them. But when they came, he was like, I thought all white people were blah, 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 blah. I didn't like any white people, but you are white people that I like. And it hurts my heart. I don't want... I wish that kind of division didn't exist, because people are people, and there's all sorts of dirt and all the colors of dirt, and we all make pretty dirt together. So
Amen.
This is the way I look at it too, okay? And I know my realist comes out sometimes. But are you going to be a martyr and die for Yeshua? Yes. I don't want to be like Peter and say it and not do it. I hope I would be. But they are the same for Allah.
yeah,
So that's something to think about too.
it is. But like I said, I don't want to get stuck there. We're actually going to go to Deuteronomy 24:16 now, and talk about fathers shall not be put to death because of their children, nor shall children be put to death because of their fathers. Each one shall be put to death for his own sin. Now, if we look at that, we also, what about where it talks about that where Yah punishes to the third and fourth generation? Does the word contradict itself, or do we just not understand the parameters?
We don't understand.
Because
Yes, please explain this.
okay, we are about to jump down that rabbit hole. So I don't know that it's a rabbit hole, but it does make you question. Okay, I need to understand what's the difference. We have the inner biblical evidence of how Mosaic law was applied, because we have Joash, one of the righteous kings of Judah. He attempted to stamp out corruption among the priests, and what would happen to him? He was assassinated among the officials, and he was succeeded by his son Amaziah, who wrote. Let's look at 2 Kings 14:5-6. And I want one of you guys to read it. I'm going to talk for a minute while you're turning there, because after he had the kingdom and it was in his grasp, what did he first do? He executed the officials who had murdered his father, the king, which you see that in royalty. You see that at least in shows and things like that. Yet, what he didn't do is he did not put the sons of the assassins to death. And why did he not do that? Well, he was following Torah. All right. So does somebody have 2 Kings 14:5-6?
As soon as he had the kingdom firmly under his control, he put to death the servants of his who had murdered the king his father. But he did not put the children of the murderers to death because of what is written in the scroll of the Torah of Moshe, as Adonai ordered when he said, Fathers are not to be executed for the children, nor the children to be executed for the fathers, Every person will be executed for his own sin.
Okay, now let's jump to Exodus 34:7 and compare it. You also see it referenced in Exodus 20 verse 5, Numbers 14:8, Deuteronomy 5:8,
Okay, now we've
Exodus
forgotten.
34:7.
So maybe that, can I say something?
Sure.
Maybe that judgment of the third to the third and fourth degree is up to Yah. That's his thing. It's not for us. That's his thing.
Oh, you hit it. So, but let's go ahead and support that. Let's go ahead and read Exodus 34:7.
Who keeps loving kindness for thousands, who forgives iniquity.
Jump up one.
Okay. Then Yahweh passed by in front of him and proclaimed, Yahweh Elohim is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in loving kindness and truth, who keeps loving kindness for thousands, who forgives iniquity, transgression, and sin, and yet he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, and on the children's children to the third and fourth generations.
Okay, so I'm going to quote what Joy already figured out. It's the difference between human justice and divine justice. So we can't lock into the hearts of people who've done wrong. We don't know. We can't assess the consequences, the full consequence of their deeds. Even what's going to happen generations later, generationally, or years later. We don't get the big picture because we don't see everything. We're in this timeline, and as we were talking earlier, Yah's outside of this timeline. Yesterday, today, forever. It's all it's not. It's all the same. It's how we're seated in heavenly places, but we're here because we're thinking we haven't gotten there yet, but yet for Yah, we're already there. Can we comprehend all that? Do we get it? No. But we don't have to. We just have to trust him. So it's not given to you and I or to anyone else but Yah to execute perfect justice. We can't match the what the evil person suffers and the causes and his evil causes. I wouldn't even know how to begin, how to start down that journey, and nor would I want to, because we're not that kind of judge. We're fruit judgers, but that's where it starts. We're fruit judgers. So how fruit inspectors? That's right.
Yeah, we are.
What kind of fruit is that?
USDA.
Yeah. So how do you punish a dictator responsible for the deaths of millions of people? How do you do that? How do you weigh the full extent of injury caused by drunk driving on a family?
Let me just step back. Ceausescu of Romania, who ruled with an iron hand, killed thousands and thousands of his own people for control and all of that. Ultimately, the people rose up, and they brought him out and they executed him as a mob. So,
but it's not going to his family, is it?
No, they went after he and his wife.
Yeah, it was the individual. It was him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because our point is, are the children going to be paid for that?
They shouldn't
Because
be.
of
They
the-
Well,
should
there's a
not be
scripture that
going
says
to-
the children won't.
But then you look at something like Nicholas and Alexandra, of Russia, the whole family
Yeah,
wiped
they went
out.
after the daughters and everything.
They took out the whole family.
Right.
Because those people are not versed in Torah. They don't.
They aren't Torah people. That's right.
Really?
And the only one that's still a mystery is Anastasia, which I think she was the youngest.
Yeah. So how do you, if there's an injury that's been caused by a drunk driver, and you're not only the victim, or there wasn't only the victim, there's the whole family that you're dealing with that's affected for the rest of their lives. How do you deal justice for that? The whole family's dealing.
I think in
as a
that
whole-
case, the man that killed the whole family, just that in itself,
I know,
is
but
going
these
to
are.
be for him something to deal with his whole life.
This is sort of reflective because in some societies, and if we did the children, since they lost their family, then the children, that man's children should lose it too. Is what my point is. We're thinking about these terms. How do you assess the degree of culpability when for the Germans who knew things were going on during the Holocaust? How do you
The ones that would sing louder in church when they heard the
Yeah.
cries of the people locked up in those train cars as it drove by, and they just sang louder so they wouldn't have to hear it.
Well, and look what Hitler did. He went and killed himself in the end. I mean, what goes around comes around, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I want us to focus in on what the conversation's about.
Well, yeah.
We're talking about justice being carried to other generations, or carried, whether it's the child, the parent paying for the child's stuff, or the child paying for the parent's stuff, or the grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. So what we see in these is that human justice has to be worked out by the parameters of human understanding.
Well, or the law of the land, right?
Right.
Couldn't you say that? It depends on the law of the land. I don't know of anything in our laws that say that if your dad did something that you're gonna go to jail for it. We don't have that law. So we as people should not, we can't do that. It's against the law.
It's
Not only
against it.
God's law, but the law of the land.
But
right?
you know what? I see people do
Well,
treat
but
the
they-
families
Well,
and
They diss them or whatever.
For example, they've got a couple different TV shows that are out there on this, but the Dalton family of Wyoming, which the dad was a scoundrel, and then the son had to carry the legacy of the name because he had the name, and there was distrust.
people treated him
People
accordingly.
treated him accordingly until they saw the fruit of his behaviors, but still there was a stigma around him.
Even
That's
Yeah.
so,
wrong, but that's just kind of our human nature.
it is our human nature, but we need to be set
We were not
apart
that, yes.
and not do that,
Yes.
because only the wrongdoer is supposed to suffer at our hands, and only after his guilt's been established by a fair and impartial. Yeah. I have a hard time spitting fair and impartial judicial system out because I'm sorry, our judicial system is far from fair or impartial. It is crooked as crooked can be, but nonetheless, Deuteronomy.
There's also Korah and his sons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but who met
Reap
that
what
out?
they sowed.
Some of the sons died, then some still live. But who's the one that met out the justice there? It wasn't.
It wasn't us, it was.
Yahweh did it.
Yes, yes.
Yah did it. Okay, so let's look at this, because even if you're reading the word, if somebody is reading the word and they talk about the third or fourth generations and they come out, they may say, what about Jeremiah 31:29 through 30? Because it says, in those days, people will no longer say, the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. Instead, everyone will die for his own sin. Whoever eats sour grapes, his own teeth will be set on edge. So there, Jeremiah 31:29 through 30. What I'm doing is giving you an example. Anyway, I'm giving you an example of how somebody might come along and say, well, the Bible contradicts itself.
Right.
And then you look at Ezekiel 18:1 through 3. Ezekiel 18:1 through 3. It says, the word of the Lord came to me. What do you people mean by quoting this proverb about the land of Israel? The fathers eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, you will no longer quote this proverb in Israel. For every living soul belongs to me, the Father as well as Son. Both alike belong to me. The soul that sins is the one who will die.
What we have to remember is when it's carried out through the generations, the Father knows everyone's heart.
And that's what
he
he said.
knows it ahead of time. So
Yes.
he knows if the heart of the third and fourth generations carries on the same as the father or the mother or both, then it's going to be carried out through the generations because he already knows the condition of their heart.
Now, I will say this though, because and this is really Yah doing in this area as well, because when we have done something in our own life, there's a spiritual consequence for our children and even our children's children. But that is not man delving out justice. That's Yah. And yet he's given us a way to break that if we'll seek him.
Yes.
He's given us a way
That's what I was gonna
to break
say.
it and let it be
Yes.
shattered so that we can lie freely. And that dark cloud that's over us because of something that our parents did or our great-grandparents. For example, those that have been that Masons, John's grandfather was a Mason. that had to be broken so the shadow of the evil that brought into his family would not bear consequences on he and his children.
Yes.
And that's an extreme. There are other things we can deal with: anger. We can deal with just name something and it's there.
But it's also still a condition of the heart, because if you're not willing to do something about it, your heart condition is still the same.
Right. We have to be willing. What?
So Connie has a question here, so we're throwing it out for everybody. She says, so even babies of the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, so who die will be given a chance at the judgment seat to accept Yeshua?
Yes.
Well, isn't it a thing where it's age of innocence?
I've talked about that before, and I remember one of the ladies that used to go to our congregation, I've brought this up before amongst you guys, and she used to talk about that, and she said, it goes sort of along with what you said, that knows the heart if they lived even. She said, I no longer, she's a counselor, so she's dealt with kids and all of that, and she said, I no longer believe that everybody from every evil person and good person gets this opportunity. She said, because I've seen it. I've seen the pure evil even as young. I've seen that. She says, I believe now that, and
Yeah.
that
Pass down.
Yah knows where you came from, and it is the sins of the parents, but he also knows what tomorrow would bring if you were there or whatever. And she said, so I no longer believe that everybody is going to get that opportunity, because, and I can't explain it, but this person I do trust very much, and she's very wise, very studied. She's a Torah observant woman, and she's dealt with it. But from what she said, it made me pause and think, wow, we could really, when we set our mind against God completely, we could possibly completely ruin our children. Not that, and I'm not sure that if there's a chance, maybe Yah sees there tomorrow. In other words, I can't explain that, but what she said really has caused me to change my heart on that.
Well, think about. So
Hold on,
Are we
you're
born
next.
in sin? Did
Yes.
it say we are born in sin?
Well,
Yes.
and
Yes.
think about it. It's not just like you can even go with witchcraft. People who are so deep in witchcraft,
Mm-hmm.
it's so ingrained
It's a
in
rampant
them,
today, yes.
So they have babies for a purpose.
and they have babies for a purpose. But even I see kids. You can tell deep down. It doesn't matter what, they are evil.
Mm-hmm. Kind of dead looking.
No,
No.
it's
Their
not
eyes.
dead. It's not a dead.
It's
Yeah.
spiritual.
It's a spiritual. It is.
No, I
evil.
need that, but they look.
No, they don't
You
look
can't
dead.
tell by their look.
No, you can look. You can
Sometimes
tell
I
by
can-
their look, but they don't look dead.
Yeah. Well, not
And they're
dead,
scary.
but- Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're evil looking.
This
Well,
goes,
Go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead, Linda.
Lou and I were talking about this. God, Yah, created Pharaoh for his purpose of evil. So I think it's very interesting what that woman said, and it does make sense. So there could be children at very, very young ages that it's kind of the same thing, for whatever the purpose is, what he's sovereign, we can't see, like you're saying, Pastor Sandy, the big picture in it. And so when children are taken out for certain reasons, or when we who have worked with children and have looked into those eyes and seen the evil in their eyes staring back at you, because I've also seen that. It's just a thought, is this is that lot for that particular child?
Well,
He's
you
made
know,
some for destruction.
Yeah, like Luann said, he's made some for destruction, like Pharaoh was made for deception.
Something I had a hard time with for a long time was when it says that he hardened their heart. And I thought, why would he purposely make them like that? And then it was explained, and I don't remember where I heard it.
I know.
Was it you?
I know. I said what he does when it says he hardens your heart. He gives you over to where you're already leaning.
Yes, he strengthens
Your
where
bel-
you're at.
He lets you just go with what you're
Maybe
going
it
with.
was that I heard you say it, but after I
what you
heard
do,
that,
what you do.
it was like, okay, now I understand the hardened heart. But that still goes back. Everything goes back to he knows the condition of our heart from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. Joy.
So in Colossians, I hope I have this right, in Colossians 1:13, it said he is the visible image of the invisible Yah, talking about Yeshua. He is supreme over all creation, because in connection with him were created all things. Okay, all. I mean, it didn't specify all good things.
Right.
All things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones, lordships, rulers, or authorities, they all have been created through him and for him. So, like you were saying, Pharaoh was hard-hearted and raised for Yah's glory. I mean, that's just the way he is. He existed before all things, and he holds everything together. So, we're living in some really tough times, and unfortunately the children are part of that, okay? I mean, things are evil. They just are, and I think it's going to get worse. And so I think what we're seeing is just that right there for God's glory here at the end. Little kids are mean.
He
Oh,
uses,
they're beyond mean
Not all
now.
of them, but little kids can be mean.
yes, he uses good and evil for his purpose.
Right. I think
And you
that's
gotta
what
look
it
at the end times. He says not everybody's gonna make it, okay? I mean, and it's what you're saying, Joy. There's reasons to why things happen, and we can't figure it out all what he did. But you're right. He uses the good and the bad.
So do we have anything online?
Yeah, so we have Tammy put in here, they're not at the age of accountability, so they are automatically taken to heaven. She goes on, at what age does an innocent baby become conscious to make a decision about right and wrong? Connie said, consequences catch up with everyone naturally, but judgment belongs to Yehovah. And then Linda said, our judgment is flawed as humans.
Yes.
And Connie said, he's the only one who could judge righteously.
That's right.
And you want to know something, however it is, if it's like this person really feels in her heart has happened, or completely that every little kid gets a chance, whichever it is, Yah's in charge of that. We don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Because first he is a Yah of compassion, but he's also a Yah of justice. And without justice, what do we have? We have chaos. We have anarchy. And without compassion, there's no humanity or no hope for us, really. And then this tension between the two values, Yah's compassion and his justice, there's this tension there, but his compassion is how long? Forever. But his justice is confined to third or fourth generation. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah that it's confined to that. And it can even be shorter when we take hold of what Yeshua's done at the cross and we apply it, but we've got to apply it.
Yes, that's
So,
yes.
and when we look at Jeremiah and Ezekiel, they were talking about the fate of a nation, and they lived at the time of Babylonian exile. So there was this despair even that the people were dealing with because they weren't home. They were living this way in this time, in this hour. Anyway, that pretty much, I wanted to hit those two things before I got to the big thing, and I only have 30 minutes. I planned on needing at least 45 minutes to do this next thing. So we're going to head for it. You're going to jump in, and we're going to talk about divorce.
Messy.
It's a messy one. But I want to look at it through, you guys have done a message on it, and you can go back and listen. I think I put the audio online before. I actually think I put it on a year ago, maybe more, when we were absent from Life of Worship. And you can go listen to that. And I still am I believe in everything I said in that message, but I want to add some other layers to it right now. So we're going to do that, and we're going to be dealing with Deuteronomy 24, 1 through 4. We're not going to reread it because of time purposes, but divorce is a subject which there's been controversy on it from Hillel and Shammai even. Hillel believed that you could get a no-fault divorce basically for any reason you want, and Shammai said no, it had to be based on adultery and things like that. So that battle is really going on still to this day. But I want to look at it now based on Yeshua's words, put it into context, and understand that this is really being referenced here as well in other places in the Torah. So let's put it all together and see where we end up. And I may, if you guys want to jump in, say something, but if we could keep the comments, like not of like a 5 or 10 minute comment, because there's no way I'm going to finish it. Though I do want you to comment. So erase what I said because I don't want to silence anyone. That's not the goal. But I do want to get it all out there because Yeshua's words were in context with the culture he was in. And you've got to understand that even writing something down back then was super expensive. Like really expensive. And so Yah had the economy of the Torah. Sometimes he would pick the most extreme example of something to show us a principle, but he's not going to write every detail down because it's assuming that you know the culture or the time or that you studied it. And so we need to reference that. And when we don't understand the culture and we don't understand the circumstance that they're in, then we are going to come back with an improper understanding of any concept. It doesn't have to be divorce or remarriage or anything else. But to understand it, we have to look at the conversation to begin with, because who is being written to when we look at the conversations in the New Testament?
Some of it was in the churches, some of them. Not.
Yeah, many of them were in the churches, or Yeshua when he's speaking. Who is he speaking to a lot?
Pharisees a lot.
He's speaking to the Pharisees and stuff a lot, trying to say, well, what do you think? He's being put to the test a lot. And we've got to realize that the conversation about Hillel and Shammai about divorce was a hot topic of the day. It would have been one of the big topics that leaders thought about. So I dare say that it is possible when Yeshua was being asked that question, it's because it says he was tested, they weren't necessarily trying to capture him, but maybe they really wanted to know, whose side are you on? Which one is it? So let's back that up and let's look at it for a minute, because the answer in this doesn't negate what we talked about in Mishpatim and other places where somebody is not being taken care of as they're supposed to be and they get a divorce or they're sent away. This is completely dealing with this one thing at this time. And specifically, it's Hillel's thoughts of no-fault divorces. You can get a divorce for anything and everything you want. That's what really is being dealt with here, I believe. So let's jump in and look. So just so you know how expensive paper was, I looked this up. Paul's letter to the Roman cost 20.68 denarii, which is calculated to $2,275 in U.S. currency.
Wow.
To send a letter. So were you going to give every circumstance and every example possible when you're writing? When the apostles are writing and giving an instruct or answering a church's question, an assembly's question, or they're addressing this thing that's going on, they're not giving every example because it would be almost impossible for people to have that information because of the expense. And paper wasn't cheap. Papyrus wasn't cheap. So they were very economic in their words and their examples. And we have to remember that. These are always an answer to an issue or a question of the day. Not today's consequence, not even necessarily back in the Torah, because they assume you know that, right? You got the Torah down, so I don't need to address the past stuff. We're looking at this. So if people already knew the information, you didn't need to add to it. And let's see. So Yeshua is having this conversation within a cultural context, and he's talking to the rabbis about marriage and divorce and remarriage. Now, based on that, I want to tell you how things have become so oddly incorrect in the church. and maybe you have or have not heard of this, but how many of you have heard of the Bar Kokhba revolt? Okay. Well, the Bar Kokhba revolt was an uprising, a Jewish uprising against Roman rule, and it took place about 132 to 135 CE. So, and it was led by Simon Bar Kokhba, and it ended, the Romans won, but there were consequences for the people. Now, Simon Bar Kokhba was the primary leader of the revolt, and he was actually seen by as a messianic figure. In fact, Rabbi Akiva, y'all have heard of him, right? He thought he was the Messiah. Well, he was mistaken, wasn't he? So this guy was seen as a Messiah by many, and he's leading this revolt. Ultimately, he was killed. But anyway, so you look at this, and what happened is there became tensions between Jewish Christians, and I'm saying that those that were in the way, the Christians and the other Jews, because many followers of Yeshua would not accept Simon Bar Kokhba as Messiah. Hallelujah, right? And they withdrew from that rebellion. So they began to separate themselves from this revolt. And with that, because they separated themselves from other Jewish people who thought that he is the Messiah, all of a sudden, what's starting to happen to the Torah knowledge? Because before this, you learned Torah and you did things together. So now this uprising is happening, which Bar Kokhba did put to death some Christians too, by the way. So there's this conflict now happening between those of the way, whether you call yourself Christian way, whatever, you know what I'm talking about, and those that do not believe in Yeshua. They all studied Torah together, believed in Torah, but now all of a sudden there's this divide that happens. Well, who's the author of that divide? All right, of course, the enemy. So what happened is ultimately is that this withdrawal contributed to the separation of Judaism and Christianity. Whereas they were both one, now they're apart. And the Sanhedrin actually at that time implemented measures to completely excommunicate Jewish Christians from the Jewish community. Mm-hmm. So the Jewish Christians, I'm saying that because that was the main tribe back then, right? So here we are together as one studying, and now we're completely separated. And it was started not by the Christians as they withdrew, but then ultimately they were like, you stay away from us because you believe in Yeshua, whereas before it was accepted somewhat. So the Sanhedrin does all this to respond because the Christians withdrew, and they actually had measures that included specific prayer that targeted Jewish Christians, which even made them be alienated more quickly. But bottom line is Bar Kokhba was persecuting and even killing the Christians, the Jewish Christians, those that believed in Yeshua. And he would actually have people that were non-Jews who would jump on the bandwagon because, hey, yeah, I don't believe in your Messiah or your God, but I'm going to jump on the bandwagon to kill Christians. Let's do it. And so ultimately, this revolt creates this huge divide within the people, and it separates those of the way, of those that were Jewish Christians, those that once had a knowledge of Torah, that believed in Yeshua. It separates them from the Torah and that way of life. What happens when you're separated? It becomes further distance. You're no longer grounded. And eventually it's going to be lost completely, and you're going to be doing your own interpretation of Scripture and your own understanding, not based on the Torah any longer. So this revolt really, I think, is one of the very big beginnings of the deceptiveness that happened in the Christian church. So I don't know if you guys knew that, but I think it's an important piece of history we should understand, because it sort of explains why things are the way they were, at least the beginning, and what happens if you're a little bit off. Eventually, you're going to be so far off that it's hard to even come back. And now, let's go back a little bit more. Divorce. Why did the Church of England separate from Catholicism? Does anybody remember their history?
Didn't it have to do with whatever the monarch was at that time? He wanted to get a divorce. And
It's
said no.
exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, he wanted to have a divorce. The only way he could get a divorce was to go to create his own church. So that's what he did. And
He
so
beheaded his wives, he killed his wives, he did all that stuff.
yeah, but we're focusing in on the divorce thing now. So now we're separated from what Yeshua is saying. We're separated from what the Torah is saying. And now we have this thing pretty much from the Christian church that all divorce is bad, wrong, etc., blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, it's pretty much the way if you have been divorced or whatever, you are so bad and evil. I remember, anyway, I'm not going to go that direction, but we need to go back and see what Yeshua says about it. And
There are times you can get a divorce in Scripture.
we're not doing that yet. So we're setting things up because we've got to look at things from a biblical perspective.
Yes.
And along those lines, because that's the only thing that matters. And Yeshua's words are that he wishes that no one should ever get a divorce. Now, that's the best, but that's if you guys go back and listen to my message, who was the first really to divorce in a way? Well, there was a whole nation of philandering, adulterous people named Israel, and Yah said, "I'm giving you a decree of divorce," right? He and that's why Yeshua died in part. But let's go back and let's read Ephesians 5:25 through 29. Ephesians 5:25 through 29. Now, I wanted to spend some time on this topic because I knew it was going to be I was going to be pressing buttons.
25?
5:25 through 29.
Okay. As for husbands, love your wife, just as the Messiah loved the Messianic community. Indeed, gave himself up on its behalf in order to set it apart for Yah, making it clean through immersion in the mikveh, so to speak, in order to present the Messianic community to himself as a bride to be proud of, without a spot, wrinkle, or any other such thing, but holy and without defect. This is how husbands ought to love their wives like their own bodies, for the man who loves his wife is loving himself. Why, no one ever hated his own flesh. On the contrary, he feeds it well and takes care of it, just as the Messiah does the Messianic community. Because we are the past. This is a Jewish Bible I'm reading out of. Okay, because we are parts of his body.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Just
So,
through 29.
I want you to get it. When Yeshua came, did he come and just die for his bride? What happened to him for 30 years, especially the last years of his life? Last little bit of his life. Okay, if we're supposed to love, our husbands are to love us, and I didn't mean to say this anyway. Yeah, Yeshua suffered for you and I.
Mm-hmm.
He suffered big time.
Yeah.
We sometimes have to suffer for our spouse. And I'm not saying no divorce. Please, don't get that.
There are cases.
But don't be a scoundrel to your spouse.
So please understand. I understand cases, so we don't need to do that route yet, because I'm going to go through some of this stuff.
Yeah, there are
But
some
when we think that, did we cause our bridegroom to suffer? Have we? We need to ask ourselves that question. Absolutely. Because he was rejected, he was ridiculed, he was mocked, he was persecuted. And are we willing to do, you husbands out there, do you do that for your wife? But also, women are responders, but how do we respond to things? And we need to love our husbands the same. Anyway, an unbelieving spouse, what does the word say about that? An unbelieving spouse who's putting the other person in danger. Okay, well, let's look at that for a moment. There's no reason that you should not flee for your life. Please understand that. If you are in danger, if you are abused, you need to flee. I mean, unless Yah says stay. If Yah specifically says stay, you do that.
Well, there's even
But
verbal abuse. Okay?
But we have to be careful that we make that distinction.
Mhm.
So that's where you pray and you seek the Father and Scripture and even those around you, communities, to help you in those places because marriage isn't easy. Anybody who says marriage is easy that's crazy. So one more time, Deuteronomy 24:1-4 says, a man takes a wife and marries her, and she found no favor in his eyes because he found a matter of indecency. The words there are Evat Devar, H1672. And what does Devar mean, everybody? It means word, but in this way it also means matter. What'd you say, Tammy?
B.
So this Avrat Devar is often can mean contentious, it can mean nudity, it can mean indecency. In fact, most sages say they don't know exactly what Yah meant when he put this word in there. If the sages say they're not exactly, and they're contradict each other, do you think you and I can get it and be sure on what we think? Probably not, because there's still a lot of debate. And here it goes back to Hillel and Shammai, because they were the big rabbis that were creating this controversy over what does this word mean. And behind the Pharisaic movement are those who influenced this idea in Yeshua's day. So we've already discussed that for Hillel, that this matter of indecency is saying that a husband can divorce his wife if he finds a matter that he doesn't like in her. Or if he sees somebody prettier, he can divorce her. He can do whatever he wants.
She burnt the toast this morning.
No, that's a good example, actually. That actually was one of the examples I read, was she burnt the bread. And so, in fact, look, even when she burns the bread.
Oh, look at there.
There you go.
Oh dear.
So this Rabbi Akiva, which thought Bar Kokhba was the Messiah, who was a false Messiah, he's the one that actually says, if you find a prettier woman, you can divorce your wife.
Wow.
He's the one that says that, yeah. And so always understand that Hillel was the no-fault divorce guy, which is the biggest reason for divorce in this day and this hour. Would you guys say that? Yeah. How many of you have heard of no-fault divorce?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But here's the thing, in the culture at that time, can a wife divorce her husband?
No, it has to be him.
It's only him. Only he can divorce. That's first century rule. Only a husband can issue that certificate of divorce. But if a wife really wanted divorce, sometimes she would approach the rabbis or the sages or whomever was in charge at the time and basically convince them why she needed a divorce. Maybe it's through beating or mistreatment and other things. And they would start to put pressure on the husband. In fact, there was even in later times sort of this Jewish mafia that would come. There's an example in Brooklyn where they would come and make the guy divorce his wife. Not make him, but pressure him. Think about mafia. That sort of explains it when I was reading. What they would do so the guy would divorce his wife. But just think about it. Look at all the trouble a woman, if she would even think about, has to go through when a man can just do so for whatever reason he decides to. Oh, the sky's blue today and it should be whatever. I'm getting rid of you. So the idea here is that when a woman is forced to go to court to have someone force the husband, it's a lot bigger deal than when a husband can just issue it himself. Okay, now look at Rabbi Shammai. He's like, nuh-uh, that is so wrong. I'm paraphrasing. It's not true. Avrat Devar means a matter of indecency, so it's about adultery or lewd behavior or improper public behavior or sexual orientation of a woman or something along those lines. But what they both did agree on is that Shammai said if somebody got divorced because of what Hillel said, and if they are ready to remarry, that's okay. So the only thing they did agree on is that there could be a remarriage. So remarriage after divorce. But they weren't going to just give the divorce or under Shammai if there had to be reason. So modern scholars have approached this text and are still not sure what Avrat Devar means, Avrat specifically, and what kind of immoral or improper behavior. Okay, so let's go when Shammai said adultery or something. Well, what do most of us immediately think of as the penalty for adultery?
Infidelity, maybe?
Huh?
Death.
Death?
Anyway.
Okay, you hear that, but it's death when there are two witnesses.
Yes.
If there's not two witnesses, then it sort of falls adultery's adultery. What does Yah put in place to deal with a man who has a wife who he thinks
Sotah.
the sotah? because what happens in that, then her belly's supposed to rot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Yah takes care of it, if that's true. I mean, yes, the sotah is true. That's not what I was meaning. Is that
she
it?
is
That's right. If she is an adulteress,
innocent, or not innocent, or whatever, yeah.
right. So generally speaking, what you have is the bitter waters trial for the test of adultery, but that would still fall in lines with Shammai, that it was a reason for divorce. Now, we know adultery is much more, yes, there's the physical adultery, but the spiritual adultery is just as important, at least for Yah. And so we've got to look at that. So understand the death penalty is for when there's two witnesses and you've been caught in the act and it's later found out, but there's no way in court to prove that if you don't have witnesses. So he puts her out of the house. Now let's look at this. This is not found anywhere else in the ancient world, where he says if he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of the house. Men didn't have to do anything in most cultures to get rid of a woman. Generally, they were not required to follow any law. You just get rid of the woman, because remember, in most of society, women were more seen as property or an ornament or something less than.
That goes on today. The Muslims believe they can beat their wives if they look at them wrong. You know.
Well, the position
and
of a
divorce
woman.
them anytime.
The position of a woman, even in today's society, is still. Even let's look at the church. Women are subclass. I'm sorry, you are. You better not speak. You better not do this. You better not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you guys need to go listen to The Walking Dead. Don't let the women speak, or something that I have, and face to face, side by side, and I have others, a series of messages, and I go into great detail in depth on all of that, and the persecution of that has happened, and now you have the knee-jerk reaction. Now women, some are masculinized, men are effeminized and put down, and it is a reaction to partial treatment. It doesn't make it just, but it's messed up. It's all, society's messed up.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes,
Y'all didn't know. It's messed up. But in the ancient Near Eastern nations, it was the norm that you could just get rid. There wasn't really a requirement to kick the woman out of your house.
Right.
Just get out, woman.
You know, in ancient Indian tribes, there were some of them that it was the opposite.
Yep.
The woman decided who she wanted to be with, and when
That's
she
cool.
was tired of them, she would just move on.
Yes.
Wow, that's
Yes,
cool.
I've
I
read
have to
that.
do some research on that and include that. That's neat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not neat that-
but they did.
It's not neat that it happens, but it would be really interesting to look at that. Thank you, Brenda. So anyway, after a while, okay, let's look at this situation. Let's say, generally speaking, that the woman's kicked out of the house, or maybe her husband's gone on this long journey for a couple years, or maybe even more, and it's believed he's dead. Now, in society back then, it took a while to get to travel from here to there, and so while he goes, because he's presumed dead, she remarries. She marries somebody else, and even has kids with them, and she takes or maybe she has kids with I don't know. But so the husband comes back, or suddenly decides he wants his wife back 5-10 years later, and this has actually been documented to happen even 10 years later. So he goes over to this other guy's house and he just takes his wife, who's been married to this other guy now for however many years or however long. The Torah is specifically saying, if you're going to do this, you better give her a get. You better give her a certificate of divorce. So in cases where there's indecency, she would actually lose lose her dowry. Remember, we talked about, I think, I've talked about it in the last 6 months. I don't remember what Torah portion, but I've talked about the dowry and what it was meant for, and we're not going to go into that detail right now. But remember, the dowry was given to her as a gift to the married couple, but it would also sustain her if something happened in the marriage. That dowry was for her to help take care of her. So bottom line is, if she messes around, she forfeits the dowry. and which makes sense, right? So in this latter version where the husband, okay, in this latter version we use the word sanah, S-A-N-A-H, number 8130, and it means that where it talks about Yah hating divorce, it means he hates sanah. It means he hates a get, that certificate of divorce. So I'm going to ask this question. What is the difference between dying and hate? What's the difference between those two with the husband dying or being hated, or the woman being hated? So what changes in the woman's position with these two different scenarios? Well, these legal documents, I want to go back to something else you may or may not have heard about. How many have heard about the Elephantine community?
The what? I didn't hear you.
Elephantine, Elephantine, Elephantine community. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about this thing because I needed to learn about it too. But there's this it was a fortress in the middle of the Nile. This community navigated through tradition and through assimilation of the Egyptian people because they lived on this island in the middle of the Nile, and it was a Jewish community. Okay, it was in the far south of ancient Egypt, downstream from the first cataract of the Nile. Like y'all know where that is. Y'all got that right? I'm being facetious. Anyway, it was a strip of land. It was called Elephantine Island. And for centuries, it was a military outpost for the Persian Empire, guarding against the invaders from Nubia. And today it's mostly in ruins and dust, but it was once there. In the 5th or 6th century BCE, the Jewish soldiers lived on this island as part of the Persian military garrison. So isn't that interesting that the Jewish people were fighting for the Persian Empire? I find that very, very interesting. And they and their families lived alongside even the Egyptians and the Persians, which now that's a Yah thing, getting along with your neighbors and your family. That's cool. They built homes, they raised families, they did business, and they practiced their religions. But one of the things that happened is they discovered that, what's it called? It was written by a Jewish priest named Yadonai in 408 BCE, and they wrote to a Persian official named Bargoas, the governor of Judea, as well as the high priest in Jerusalem, and they asked permission to rebuild their temple. Whoa, that should get everybody going. What? They had built a temple with sacrifices and everything else on this island. And here's the kicker. They didn't think there was anything wrong with asking permission. So somehow they were a little separated from the Torah, that there's only one place to do sacrifices. And that was Jerusalem. But nonetheless, this is the society that they lived in. Because it wasn't a synagogue. It was, according to the writing, a fully functional temple. A temple service, sacrificial animals, gold and silver utensils, everything. But according to these people, when it talks about the so-and-so hates divorce was a common language even for them. And a woman didn't necessarily, she was the victim of the man's problem. I think that's the best way to put it, because a man, according to them too, could still just get rid of his wife. Give her get. She didn't do something right. Give her get rid of her. So here we have more of this idea in different communities around, just the woman is just easily discarded. Okay? So, but here's the difference. When a husband dies, she gets to keep her dowry, of course. So that's important. The first husband, though, can't take her again to be his wife. Why? Because what if he's prompted by greed? I don't know if you guys know about any marriages that are prompted by greed by a male or female. Has anybody heard of that?
Maybe once.
Oh my goodness. I mean, isn't that one of the big motivators? Especially you see it can be in everything, but especially if you have one young and one old, it doesn't matter which sex it is. A lot of times has a monetary desire from one party, nonetheless. But one of the reasons why you didn't remarry is because you didn't want to, that God, maybe it was because of greed, trying to get the money, God's not for that. Because he had the original dowry, now he's going to get a new dowry if he marries her, and that's not what was wanted. So Jeremiah 3, verse 1. Let's turn there. We're going to read that. Watching my time. Oh, I'm late. Ooh. What do I do, John? I can't. I'm not even near Yeshua yet. I'm setting the groundwork.
Their StreamYard has limits.
No, it's that we have to get ready for the next service. That's the limit. Okay, Jeremiah 3:1 says, they say if a man divorces his wife and she goes from him and becomes another man's, may he return to her again. Would not the land be greatly polluted? Okay, but if you played the harlot with many lovers, yet return to me, says the Lord. Okay, Yah says if the husband divorces his wife, that the land is polluted. So this idea is coming back to the Lord with coming back to Yahweh after you've been with other lovers pollutes the land. Think about that. Have we polluted the land? Because
In America, yeah.
Yahweh is the husband of Israel. Okay, so when Israel goes astray, when Israel goes after other gods, we know it's an act of adultery. I'm not going to rehearse all of that because we've talked about it before. You can look at Malachi 2:15, but not one has done so as the remnant of the Spirit. And what did that one do while he was seeking godly offspring? Take heed then in your spirit, and let no one deal treacherously against the wife of your youth. And you can go on there. Start with Malachi 2. Just read chapter 2, starting with verse 15. So the wife of your youth is mentioned there. For I hate divorce, says Yahweh, the God of Israel. So he's equating divorce to violence here, to covering up your garments with violence when you read further down, because it says, for it covers one's garments with violence. So divorce covers one's garments with violence, says the Lord of hosts. Therefore, take heed of your spirit that you do not deal treacherously. All right? Okay, one of the reasons that we look at that is marriage is a covenant, right? In fact, the reason you have witnesses is because they are to remind you, hey, you took this covenant, you took this vow. Is sleeping with somebody make a marriage? No. I hear some people say, well, I slept with them, so we're married in God's eyes. No, there are witnesses, there's ceremony, there's certain things that have to happen for you to be married. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just fornication or adultery, one or the other. But Yah uses the witnesses because we are witnessing something so that we can remind those that took a vow of what they promised. That's what the witnesses are for. Okay. Now let's fast forward to the first century one more time. And where we're talking about indecency, that devar. When you look at Matthew 5:31 through 32, it says, furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you, whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. Now, who is saying that? Yeshua is saying that. So is he saying that the only reason is adultery? No. He is addressing the question of the day. He is addressing that specific situation. He's not addressing what the Torah has already said is permitted for a divorce. He's taking care of this specific thing right here in this place. So the concept here is that if you divorce your wife and she marries someone else, there's adultery. Maybe there is, but it's not on the woman. Guess who it's on? The man who sent her out, or who did not follow through properly, or whatever. It's the man's fault. The woman can't be set in bondage and never remarry because the husband decided she wasn't pretty enough, or she wasn't this, or she wasn't that with Hillel's no-fault divorces. Because Yah created man and woman to come together, and Yah's ultimate desire for them is a marital relationship. Is it wrong to be not married? No, it's not. Burn with fire, etc., etc. We're not going there, but specifically man and woman are meant to be together. You have Daniel. Daniel's a eunuch, great man of God, great man of Yah. We're not going to deny that. But she has that right to remarry. Now you go look at chapter 19, and it says, now it came to pass when Yeshua had finished these sayings that he had departed from Galilee and came up to the Judea beyond the Jordan, and a great multitude followed him, and he healed them there. The Pharisees also came up to him, testing him. There's your key word where you need to hone in on the culture of the time and what's being said. Is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? And those words there are pasanatan. P-A-S-A-N-E-T-A-N. And he answered them and says, have you read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female? For this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then there are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together let no one separate. They said to him, why then did Moses command a certificate of divorce to put her away? He said to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, permitted you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. And so I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality. That repeats what we just read. So you look at this word for testing, it's perazzo, and it's number 3985, and it means to test, to attempt, trial, things like that. So right off the bat, we see someone's testing Yeshua, and that's the key context here. And to this very pointed question, this pasanat tam, and is it lawful? Again, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? Okay, let me skip down some things so we can address those. So this was a huge debate. What I want us to realize here is Yeshua is addressing the debate between Hillel and Shammai. That is what is going on here. He's not addressing this is the only reason for the whole of Scripture. He's addressing the culture and the context and the issue of the day. That this is what's going on. So when the Pharisees come to test Yeshua, they're not asking him, can a man divorce his wife for any reason at all? No. They're asking him, how do you interpret, what is your interpretation of the laws of divorce and remarriage in Deuteronomy 24, 1 through 4? What they are asking, and we don't see it because of the culture, is that they want to know how you're supposed to look at it now, because the two schools, the two houses, Shammai and Hillel, are completely opposite in their ideas of what this means. And so many other groups that were there in the Torah, they were dealing with the divorce laws as well. Exodus 21:10 says, if he takes another wife, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, her marriage rights. All right? When we talked about mishpatim, we broke that down a whole bunch. So I was going to talk about it today. No time. So if you want to go back and listen to the spiritual side of food, clothing, and marriage, go back to Parsha Mishpatim on our website, and you will be able to listen to that because I go into great detail about what that means. So marriage was a commitment. It was between two families back in the day. It was about sometimes money, poor, rich, trying to change somebody's circumstance. We've addressed that. John, I need more time. Skipping through my notes, I'm not making sense anymore. Anyway. Okay, guys, I'm just paging down, trying to figure out what I should or shouldn't say, trying to skip through pages. So I have down here that the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Essenes, that everyone they had in contact with, they all agreed that there wasn't dispute among the Exodus text in 21:10, that when the wives had to be taken care of, the lesser wife, the main wife, etc., etc. Okay, if they weren't taken care of, it was grounds for divorce, according to Scripture. They were not disagreeing with any of that. They were specifically addressing the question of the day. And I was going to talk about, I'm still going to talk about muzzle the ox, because you bring in Paul's writing here. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm too late already. Okay, so I didn't get to go through everything I wanted to on that. I had to just briefly touch base with that understanding and what Paul has said, and there's a lot more. I have about 10 pages more. Wish I could get there, can't get there. But I want to do some study, and maybe we can address it during a teaching or a study one of these days soon and finish this out, and even talk about how muzzle the ox, which we see in Deuteronomy 25, relates to that. Anyway, thank you. Our worship team is coming in. Jack's here. And so thank you, and y'all bless, and Pastor John will close us out.
Okay. Yeah. It's good study, and worth looking even to fill in with all those other notes, Pastor Sandy. So I said it would be even good for you to go in and fill in all those other notes that you couldn't touch base with today.
When?
I don't know, but it'd be worth it to take the time to do
Do you
it.
want me to take your spot?
You know, you could fill in the blanks. You sure could. Make it a part. Make it a part two.
Copy of your notes.
Kitty down.
You can make it a part two.
Oh, I just have to have a few minutes to study so I can put all the holes that I just made in my notes back together, but maybe.
We'll
Okay,
just back it up and start where you started scrolling.
okay, because then you saw me going.
If it overlaps, then it's okay because
Well,
there'll
maybe
be
I'll do that. Would y'all like me to do that?
Yes.
because there would be people joining on the other side that may not have listened to the Torah portion. So,
Hey, can y'all move? This stuff is
all right. So we're going to close out the stream, and we thank you for joining us and coming back and being part of our discussion. Since Pastor Sandy and I were out of town for the last couple weeks, and thank you Eddie and Tammy for filling in for us on the first weekend that we were out, and we really appreciate that. So we're going to close out with prayer, and then we will see you guys in 45 minutes for our encounter service. We're going to reset, and we'll see you there. So, Father, we just bless you and we honor you. We thank you that you are good and you're faithful. We thank you for the word that you brought for us to cause us to think, to dig, to hear what your Spirit is saying to the assembly today. Father, we thank you that you're more than enough. And we thank you that, Father, in you that is truth. And that truth is what resonates within us. So let your truth resonate within us today. That, Father, we would be drawn closer to you.
Yes.
That's the whole point of our gathering, is be drawn closer to you.
Amen.
And to seek you and when we seek you with all of our heart, you will be found. So we just bless you, and we thank you for the Shabbat. We thank you for the shalom of the Shabbat.
Yes.
In the name of Yeshua. And everybody said,
Amen.
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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.